Hello and welcome to Football Today, where it's all about the impossible dreamers at Leicester City. Dream completed last time out, but now in very real danger of becoming the first Premier League title winners to go from champions to championship at the first time of asking.
Week after week, game after game, we are seeing something special. A story like this may never happen again.
Become a phenomenon. That is a gem. He is a gem.
And Barney Gorgeous-Dyer.
They're not just beating the richest club in the land, they're ripping them up on their own patch. Wow, where is this going? Leicester City are the champions of England. How on earth did that happen? Leicester can ride the wave in 2016. Bring on the champions. Hull City shot the champions on day one. The Foxes never more hungrily hunted than they are now. Champions well beaten.
And Leicester were like a set of statues.
The champions Leicester are well and truly on the slide.
And it's a long way back to the champions now.
Manchester United are ripping Leicester apart here. Leicester lame. His prospects not good. The champions are in tatters.
How'd you solve a problem like Leicester City? Last season, it was all about the Hollywood dream. They were even writing that movie script. Well, get yourself some popcorn, plump up a cushion, because for the next 90 minutes, we are focusing on the defending champions. Where do they go next? In the company of two leading actors. Well, play acting was their forte. Matty Elliott and Emil Heskey. Leicester City legends, still legends in your own right. Do you still get mobbed, Matty, when you head up there?
Not sure mobbed is the right word. I haven't quite developed into an ex-legend just yet, but getting there. But yeah, we still. Well, I live around the area still, so get around the streets and be part of the community as well as the club.
You must be loving last season. You're making a fortune off it, aren't you?
Yeah, it was great to see them winning the league last season and everything that comes along with it. Being the ambassador now, it's nice to be travelling with them.
He makes a bit more than me.
You do all right. You do all right. It is one of those things when you look at last season that you do have to pinch yourself, don't you? And I think a lot of Leicester City fans are still doing that.
Yeah. It's so many different viewpoints of last season that are coming to the fore this year, because some people don't care, literally, even if Leicester do get relegated. They've got that memory to cherish and hold on to of winning the Premier League last year. They would, swap that for relegation. So, but I think the way it just came out of the blue, the total contrast from the season prior, with a great escape from relegation, and then to defy ridiculous odds, 5,001 to go and win the Premier League itself, and then you see, I suppose it somewhat typifies the club in a sort of exaggerated way, to go and be struggling this year, because it always seems to be topsy-turvy at that club.
Yeah, it does.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Highs and lows, and relegations, promotions, winning things,
it's always
administration. There's always something going on in there.
It's always excitement for the fans, though, isn't it? It's something different all the time. But if you look at, if you take away last season and you look at the season before to this season, there is a little bit of a change. It's a bit better, obviously, just being 1 point above relegation. Whereas I think the season before, when Nigel Pearson was involved, it was the Christmas time we were bottom of the league, dead and buried, and then went on an amazing run. And that's what they've just got to look at. They have the ability, and they have they still have some of the players from then that can actually go on that run again.
So last season was the exception to the rule, then?
I just saying there on the screen, something about Bocelli when he was there. That was one of the highlights for me when I saw that. I know it's a non-footballing issue, but it just celebrated the magnitude of the achievement for Leicester last year. But how amazing everything was last year, and the highs that people came to have proved a problem this this season. And I think that's been part of the issue.
To look at where they are this season, then you have to look at last season, as you so eloquently explained. But what was it that they were doing right? What was it that Claudio Ranieri got right last time out that perhaps isn't happening now?
Well, for me, it was just keeping things simple. He hasn't got a team of superstars there. And I think well done to him for initially coming in and not making changes straight away. The only thing he did change was the system. Leicester escaped relegation the season before in a 3-5-2 system. And he came in, implemented a 4-4-1-1/2 approach, and it paid dividends. But what they were, he just said to them about the basics. They were solid, they were compact, they were a unit. They defended deep. Everyone saw their style of play. Defend deep, break up play, and hit on the counter. Kept it simple and let the players do the rest and find their way. And I think this year, maybe they've gone away from that touch, tried to be a bit more progressive, and that's caused them problems because they haven't been able to evolve themselves a little bit.
We will get on to perhaps what's gone wrong this season in a bit, but I wonder just for the moment on that team, Emil, for last season, whether they will become and whether they are heroes in that city and what it meant to the city and that group of players, how they'll be remembered.
Oh, they'll be remembered fondly. They are heroes for that season. It was fantastic. Knowing what the plans were for the start at the start of the season, which was get to 40 points and see what happens, and then to go on and going from strength to strength, and teams and pundits alike saying, they're going to fall off. Don't worry, they're going to fall off. And
Did you say that?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't. No.
Carry on, Emma.
I was fortunate enough to see every game. No, I had belief in them. I was one of the few, mind you.
In all fairness, when it came to Christmas, and Matty will tell you this, when it comes in and around Christmas and that busy period where you're playing a game every 3 days, that's an important time. And you got to remember they went for a full season without really making too many changes and not many injuries, and I think that really helped them through that winter period where you're having a lot of games back to back. They just kept on going from strength to strength, and it was just phenomenal.
I think it was 36 players he ended up using last season as well. When you look at the lowest was somewhat 22 previously when you've won a title. Let's take a look at some of those key stats then from last season, because not just the fact that he's using a small amount of players, that you've got that key team spirit too, but it was that highlight year, that standout year, that exceptional year that you spoke about, Matty.
There are stats and bits and pieces put up everywhere, aren't there, of their achievements, breaking all sorts of different records, more often than not for novelty factor reasons. The first time this has happened, first time that has happened. And the bookmakers there, I mentioned about the odds of 5,001. I wasn't brave enough to put any money myself, even when I was pretty confident they would win. Unfortunately, I'm not a betting man. I wish I was sometimes, but even at Christmas they were like 2,000 to 1, I think. But top division title, first time in his career. Who would have thought it would happen for Ranieri at that stage of his career? You'd think his time was perhaps, or his best times were behind him, and he came a bit out of left field. The appointment initially, a lot of people were mentioning various other names, and the board was so impressed by his interview when he had the opportunity, came in and just turned things around unbelievably, didn't they?
Remember that stat, because I'm getting you to remember quite a lot, and I know for you two that might be quite difficult, but remember that stat for a moment, because we'll return to Ranieri in a bit. But in previous 20 seasons across the top 5 leagues in Europe, the title was won by a previous champion 95 times out of 100. So just 5 times we saw teams win that title that hadn't previously. And if you have a look, these are the other exceptions to that rule. Auxerre never won another, now in League 2. That was in 95-96. Lens the same in League La Liga. Deportivo, this was in 99. They've been relegated twice since. Wolfsburg in Bundesliga, they've never won another title since that. In 2008-2009, they were runners-up, though, in 2014-15. And then Montpellier in 2011-2012. They haven't finished higher than 7th since. So Leicester aren't alone, but there are very few clubs that are part of that.
Yeah.
Is that stat flummoxed?
No, it depends on the club that you're talking about and basically the financial backing as well, up to a point that they have around them to be able to sustain that sort of level of achievement, I think, as well. And a little bit of the history of the club as well, because Leicester City, while they were Premier League champions last year, which is perhaps something we'll come on to down the line, is the recruitment aspect of things. Leicester City are not able to attract a Ronaldo, a Messi, for instance. They had to go into relative sort of bargain transfer market and try and be clever in that way. So, and they find it difficult to sustain that level. I mean, the likes of Manchester City, who sort of came out of nowhere, backed financially, are able to stay up there, aren't they? But they did have a history going back over decades, really. Perhaps not to the level of Man United. But Leicester, I think, it was just seen as a perfect storm almost, wasn't it? Everything came together. The other sides were struggling a little bit for whatever reason, in transition with their squads a lot of the time. And it was one of those periods where everything that could go right happened right for Leicester. But hopefully they don't become, I think, will they be the only statistic to win the league and get relegated? I know we were speaking offset about what a great ending to the film it might be for dramatic purposes, but I don't really want to contemplate it.
Maybe this is just the heartbreak, you know, the bit in the film where you kind of don't want to watch it, but you know they'll come out the other side. That's the bit of hope, hopefully, for Leicester fans as well.
I think a lot of people have left the auditorium by now. They're probably shut off, haven't they?
I'm never going to the cinema with you. Matt Elliott and Emil Heskey talking all things Leicester City. That was last season then, but what a difference 9 months make. They headed into that match, Manchester United, this weekend, and now find themselves just a point off the relegation zone.
Mkhitaryan's on his way. He's left Huth behind. He's left Morgan behind. And he has scored for Manchester United. Valencia. Ibrahimovic too, in a choice. 87 seconds between the two goals. Mata. Mkhitaryan. Mata. Beautifully done. Manchester United are ripping Leicester apart here. This is grim for the champions.
We're going to look in depth at the reasons for the decline in a moment, but 5 without a win, 4 defeats in a row, no goals in 27. Just take that in for a moment. I mean, it's such a contrast.
Yes, unfortunately so. I mean, people look at the lack of goals and then the next second they look at the amount of goals conceded, and if they want to stop in between, there are problems in the centre of the park, in midfield area as well. Not enough creativity there, not enough defensive cover for the back unit, and the problems are numerous and mounting. It's difficult to know where to plug the leak, really.
Well, that's no good. I brought you here for answers.
I can give reasons why I think it's happening and suggestions, but whether Ranieri can actually go and prove effective in doing that is another matter. But there's not a lot to be positive about, to be honest, at Leicester. You know, at the moment, because they're on such a slide, there's negativity around there. Other teams in and around them and below them are picking up for one reason and another. The only sort of crumb of comfort I think Leicester have got really is the fact that they have produced with primarily this set of players, whether it be winning the championship, surviving relegation the next season, or last season winning the Premier League itself. They have that confidence and belief that they've got it in there somewhere. Can they reproduce it?
See, I'm not so sure. Have a listen to this. This is Kasper Schmeichel from the weekend. Surely now's the time for the players to stand up and start talking like Kasper did.
You're a team full of character. Would you have folded like that last season?
Let's not talk about last season. Last season's gone, as you can clearly see. Last season has gone. Yeah, we need to stand up and be counted. This season, from top to bottom, hasn't been good enough. I'm not going to comment on any newspaper speculation. I know what's going on in the dressing room. We're a group of players who are low on confidence, but certainly not low on fight. We'll fight till the end, whatever that may be. But I can guarantee you, every player in there is hurting. It's not a situation that's comfortable at all. We're the reigning champions, and quite frankly, it's been terrible. It's been embarrassing. It's time for every single one of us, right from the top to the bottom of this club, to stand up and be counted. Because if we don't, we're going to end up getting relegated, and obviously nobody wants that.
Emil, it's interesting in so much as we've not really heard the players talk about relegation. It's always been a cut. It's not going to happen to us. And yet Kasper steps forward and says it.
Well, when you're sliding slowly towards the relegation battle, at some stage you've got to be realistic with yourselves. And I think he's been holding a lot of things back, probably in interviews before. And now he's just thinking, well, no. It needs to be said. These lads need to know that we're actually in a relegation fight here. We need to pick ourselves up. We need to dust ourselves down and get some results. And that's probably what you're seeing there.
Would you have liked him, and if you were in that situation, would you have stood up and said, actually, we take some of the responsibility, and you know what, we've let the manager down? Because it seems to kind of swerve the manager question.
Yeah, he did cleverly swerve the manager's the question about the manager, and that's something that everyone's picking up on now. The end of the day, if you're happy with your manager, you usually back him and say, look, it's down to us. And generally it is down to the players. He puts a system out there and you've got to go out and do it. When we played, the manager would basically be practicing something during the week and then change it come Saturday, and you're like, well, okay, let's go out and do it. We never complained. We just went out and did it and knew that we were good enough to actually adapt when needed.
Well, Martin O'Neill would tell us we had to back him publicly, and we would do what he said. We were scared of him. But that was a different scenario. Times have changed a bit these days as well.
Have they? I mean, you still expect players to be leaders and accountable, don't you?
Yeah, I think people are a lot more media savvy as well, aren't they? The players themselves, they know every little word is picked up on, and they're a little bit reticent to say anything too openly, I think. But then there comes a time where they feel a rallying call is necessary. But I think the players would have spoken together amongst themselves behind the scenes long before last Sunday that say, boys, we are in a relegation fight. The worrying thing is you haven't actually seen much of a difference or a change in the way they play. Against Burnley, distinctly average performance. Southampton, way less than average. And there hasn't really been a reaction once the sort of realisation that they are in this position. And Kasper Schmeichel is one of the stronger characters. There are a few in there, and they have that to hold on to, I think, the fact that they've gone through a lot together for the reasons I mentioned just now. Championship, promotion, winning the league, staving off relegation. But there are only so many Kasper Schmeichels in that team. There are a few people that I think, when the going gets really tough,
can they
not necessarily stand up and be counted.
Well, I've obviously been in relegation battles myself, and it can be tough at times because you've got a bunch of players looking at probably the senior lads and looking at the so-called better players to pull you out of that quagmire. And a lot of them were looking at Kanté's gone now. They're looking at Mahrez. They're looking at Vardy and saying, well, you was doing it last year. We need you now. And they're not quite at that peak that they were last year. And they're the ones that are really the ones that are going to be looking at to pull them out of the situation that they're in.
Well, let me throw another couple of characters into the mix, because we were joined in the Matchday Live studio by two players who perhaps Leicester could do with at the moment. One, Kasper's dad, Peter. The other, pretty handy in front of goal, Alan Shearer.
The thing is, what can you say, right? We're watching the games. We can see that so many things are wrong, and we're analysing on it. We can point to things that are... Kasper said something which is really important here. It's a whole club, and that's what it is. They had this massive, incredible ride last year, and then the fizz has gone out of that. How do they recover from that? And I don't think they know. They have the same conversation every week.
I don't need to read newspapers to tell me there's issues inside that football club. I look at the issues on the football pitch, and that tells me there's bigger problems. They're having problems off the pitch also, whether they've lost faith in the manager, whether the manager's lost faith in the players. But there's no excuse for players not doing the basics. The basics are the simple facts. That's whether you're successful, whether you're playing a Sunday league team or your school team or in the Premier League. The first thing you have to do is the basics, and you have to do them well. And Leicester City Football Club, at this moment in time, are where they are because they deserve to be there, because they're not starting games well, they're not working hard enough, they're not putting in enough tackles, and they don't look a together team.
I know you're part of the Players' Union, so you might find this difficult, but he's given stick to the players there, rightly so?
I think Alasdair was spot on. Whatever the situation behind the scenes, if there's disharmony or discontent between the players and the manager or the coaches, the backroom staff, whatever it is, whatever the problem is, you're there, you're duty bound as a professional footballer. You've got your own pride about yourself, but you have a responsibility to go out there and perform to the best of your ability. You're not going to get 25 stroke, including backroom staff, 35 people, all in agreement all the time. There are going to be issues. But at the end of the day, whatever Ranieri says, irrespective of what you think of it, you have to go along with it. Now, you can speak in an adult way, collectively as a group and professionally, and discuss issues and propose them in a respectful way. But when push comes to shove, your responsibility is play for the manager, give your best, and do the best for yourself, the manager, the staff, the supporters, and the club as a whole. And I don't think, I always worry when you hear these rumours coming out, it means the players are almost deflecting a little bit, using that as a little bit of a lever and an excuse not to perform. It isn't, because whatever you think of what's going on, you need to give full commitment on the pitch. And I don't think they've been doing that. I think it's more subconsciously than anything.
I'm going to ask you both whether you've ever kind of manipulated the situation before to maybe see if the manager would go. I'll leave you a moment to think about that, because this all came, of course, speculation in the newspapers over the past couple of days over the future of Claudio Ranieri. A statement then released by the club in light of that speculation went on to say they want to make it absolutely clear of their unwavering support for Ranieri. While there is a collective appreciation from everyone at the club that the recent form needs to improve, the unprecedented success achieved in recent seasons has been based firmly on stability. Goes on to say the entire club is and will remain united behind its manager, behind its players, collectively and firmly focused on the challenges ahead. We normally call that a kiss of death, but both of you, given your knowledge of the club, they're very proud owners, and they also don't do things unless they're going to follow through with it, do they?
Well, I think that, like you're saying, that usually is a kiss of death, but knowing the owners, that is great to have that support from them. They're not that sort of owners that will just say, next minute, you're gone.
He'd be gone already, wouldn't he?
Yes, exactly. Right. They are proud. They work with the manager. They respect the manager of what he did, what he's done, and what he's doing, and how and showing that they're actually going on up the ladder. Really, we're going to try and push up the ladder anyway. And I think, like Matty said, I think he's as long as he can get the backing of these players have actually shown they can get out of this situation. They've shown before, and that they're capable of doing this.
Do you think he does have the backing of the players?
I think he does. I haven't seen anything that suggests that he's not specifically got the back. I've been in situations where players generally don't want to play for the manager. I've been in them situations. The best to get them players out and look at everyone else who actually wants to pay for you, who wants to die for you. We've been with a manager that everyone's loved, and they run through a brick wall for. And we went to cup finals year after year, three cup finals in 4 years we went to, and that showed on the pitch.
Interesting point about whether, I'm not saying you two were naff, but whether you play above your level perhaps for the right manager too, and whether the players did that last season maybe aren't doing it this season. That statement interesting in its timing as well. It came just before Ranieri was about to give a press conference ahead of their FA Cup match with Derby. This is a big match for reasons to do with the location up against Derby, local rivals as well, and you think to do with momentum too. And of course, Ranieri was asked at that press conference about the statement.
I think this is for you, not for me, because I know the idea of the chairman of the club to everybody, and for me it's okay, but I think this is more for you than for me.
Did this need to need to be done? Did it need to be given to the press?
I don't know. Maybe the chairman want to stop all the speculation.
Have you spoken to the chairman?
I spoke every time with him. I spoke every
What's
time.
he said?
Eh?
What's he had to say to you?
I don't tell you. I support. Look, I agree with all my players, and Kasper is one of my leaders, and he wants to stimulate everybody. Help me to stimulate the team, and we are fighting, and that is very, very important.
Have there been enough leaders like Kasper on the field? And
yeah, no. A lot of leaders are speaking together, try to help the team, support the teammates. It's fantastic. The dressing room is fantastic.
What has been the mood like in the dressing room? Is it an angry place, a sad place?
No, we try to do our best, but this season everything is wrong. But we still fighting, and that is my strength, no? That is important for me to see how they train, how they want to do, how they speak together, how they speak with me to try to improve some situation, what we are doing well and not well. That is good.
What is that relationship like between you and the players these days?
Is
it a healthy one?
It's the same last season.
Same as last season. Two things, though, perhaps a little bit different over the past few months that we've seen. That smile's back. He was joking in that press conference, which we've seen him maybe the sterner side of Ranieri over the past couple of months. But also what we've seen this season are the changes. The Tinker Man is back. Last time out, fewest amount of changes. This time out, sixth most amount of changes. Do you think that man you've just sat there talking to the world's press knows his best team? And is he tinkering too much?
Well, it's easy last year. And again, I think he did well initially last season not to make those changes that he's renowned for. And he stuck with the same players initially, and they brought success. But that's easy not to change, isn't it? When you're winning it, that would be an obvious way to go. But I think, again, the players have to take a portion of the blame, though, for why he is making changes. He's making changes because they're not getting results. So he's thinking, maybe I'd try this way and try that. And there are calls and clamours for him to do that. And when it doesn't work, people castigate him for it. So it's a bit of a catch-22. I think one thing he has done, in my view, has changed tact a little bit with how Leicester approach games. I heard him say earlier in the season, we need to evolve. We need to become something else because other teams have worked us out. I don't think they had worked them out. Or if they had worked them out, they couldn't stop it happening. Last year, people knew what Leicester were about at Christmas last season. Couldn't stop it occurring. And I think they've become a bit more progressive, a bit more not outlandish, but cavalier maybe in their play. So the players maybe think, well, I'm a Premier League champion here. I'm going to go and strut around a bit and show them that I'm a good player without doing the nitty-gritty that they need to do, which is what made them successful.
Alan Shearer was saying that, do the basics right.
Yeah, it's as simple as that, I think. That's what brought Leicester success. Yes, individual ability, Mahrez, Drinkwater, Vardy, Kanté, and others contributed, but it's that. That was the standout feature of their play. And I think Ranieri's tried to move away from that a little bit. And I think they paid the price for that. Then it's all become a little bit of a muddle, hasn't it? Because the other thing is, again, mentioned about recruitment. Again, players have come in because there's an extra fixture schedule with the Champions League. Recruitment's coming. They haven't impressed too much. And so that's caused him another predicament. So to answer your question, does he know his best team?
I can't remember what my question was.
I don't think he does. I don't think he does, Caroline, no.
Well, if he doesn't, then in a few hours' time, they've got arguably one of the biggest games of the season. If you're a fan and you're sat there watching it, it's a replay against local rivals Derby in the FA Cup. When you look at who they've got coming up next, again, which is a match they should win, who should he go with in the next few hours? Do you go with your best team, or do you think, got Champions League coming up? I'll let you answer.
For me, I would go with the best team because you want to get a result. You need to get the confidence of these lads back up again, and going out there, putting on a performance, winning that game against local rivals, which is a big game, as we know. It just galvanise them and gives them that confidence to go into the weekend knowing that they need a result there as well. So yeah, I think you've got to play your best 11.
I'll go along with that. 100%.
I hate to see you two agree.
No, I would. I mean, there's a tendency, obviously, the priority is the Premier League. I understand that. But if it was a normal scenario, but at the moment, I mean, they've got Wednesday till Sunday anyway to recover. Surely they can do that in 4 days. And at the moment, Leicester needs some positivity. They need a spark, something to get them going again. And if they play a substandard team against Derby, more than likely to come unstuck. And then, the lack of confidence just builds and it goes into the weekend. And
the longer you go without picking up a result, without getting building up that confidence, the worse it gets for you.
But how are they doing so well in the Champions League, for example? They've got Sevilla coming up to another big game for them. How can you do so well in that competition and yet still be failing in the Premier League? And I'll add another one to that. If I gift wrap to you now, relegation from the Premier League, but you can win the Champions League, which one do you go for? So where are you placing your importance?
The Champions League, for me, I look at the Champions League and I said that a lot of the teams that they're playing against don't necessarily understand the way Leicester play. The Champions League is the elite, we look at it, and everyone wants to play really nice, attractive football. That falls straight into Leicester's hands anyway. And they don't really play a possession-based football. They like to hit you on the counter-attack. And I saw a lot of the teams as well, giving Leicester probably a little bit too much respect as well, rather than getting at them and really overwhelming them.
Well, that's actually where Leicester have reverted to type in the Champions League. As Emile says there about sitting deep on the break, they've adopted that, whether it was a conscious thing, I imagine so, by Ranieri, for the reason that Emile has mentioned there, that opposition teams don't know them as well. I know you're going to say to me, surely there's a scouting system.
Well, you've got that. You've got videos. We can sit and watch them at home.
Well, you would hope so, wouldn't you? But it's a different proposition when you actually come up against them, maybe. And it's worked well for Leicester. I think it's partly that. I think it's also they're still hungry for the Champions League. It's new, it's exciting, it's a new challenge. And they just get themselves pumped up for it like they were last year in the Premier League. And they haven't been like that in the Premier League this year. You would think it would still be new to them because they haven't been there that long. They're not seasoned campaigners. But that difference in mental approach has made a big difference. And on top of that, the opposition, despite it being the elite, as Emile says, the Champions League in that group was pretty favourable. We'll see a difference, I think, against Seville.
When you look at Seville, third in La Liga at the moment, then you look at the rest of the teams in that last 16 too. I'm not saying they've got no hope against the rest of them should they beat Seville, because obviously that will put a bit of confidence in them. But you look at that and think, right, could face Barcelona, could face whoever in the next. Those big heavyweights, is it worth just going out now? Let's call it quits.
No, you've got to enjoy it.
You've got to relish it. When we won the what was it, Coca-Cola, what would say, League Cup at the time, and then went
it was right up there with the Champions League.
Well, yeah, look, we went into playing against Atletico Madrid, and you're like, wow, look at these surroundings, and you want to go out there and win
about
it.
14 at the
time. But yeah, it was just a great experience, and they're just riding a wave at the minute, and I wouldn't say let's just concentrate on the Premier League and get out of that. It's a great competition that you can look back on and say to your grandkids or whatever, look what I did.
What do the players care more about?
Sure, that's a decent question, but I think ultimately Premier League status prevails, certainly as a player. I mean, I got a bit of stick last year saying about FA Cup runs, and some supporters would rather win the FA Cup and get relegated because it's something to cherish and remember. As it turned out, they won the Premier League, never mind the FA Cup, so they had the best of both worlds. But I think, what an adventure. I mean, these players, majority of them, never thought they'd be featuring in Champions League, certainly not in the last 16, and certainly not for Leicester City, wherever their career took them. So, it gives them that natural buzz and that high. You can see it. There's a buzz in the atmosphere at the King Power as well, which, again, is not as intense as it was last year, down to results. But, listen, Champions, I'd have loved the opportunity to get involved. You were lucky enough, Hes, weren't you?
Played in it, so
got in there a few times. Ours was short. We didn't have a lot of luck, by the way, just on that one. Atletico Madrid, who had the best front five in Europe.
Hang on. I'm just getting my very small violin out to play for you as well in sympathy.
And Red Star Belgrade the next year we got in, who won it the Champions League the year after, didn't they? So
hey, at least you've been on a European
short and
tour.
sweet. Short and sweet.
Very
short,
much.
Anyway.
Like this chat. We're going to end it there for the moment, purely because I want to find out what happened on their European adventures. When we come back, though, with Emile Heskey and Matt Elliott, we will go in depth and look further at what's going wrong for Leicester City and perhaps ask where they can turn it right.
Into the path of Willian and Pedro. That's 3 for Chelsea. And Leicester were like a set of statues. It's going to drop for Jay Rodriguez. And it's a long way back to the champions now. The champions, Leicester, are well and truly on the slide.
I'm not sure if it's a mathematical or scientific puzzle, but we're trying to solve the problem that is Leicester City, going from being champions in the Premier League to perhaps maybe relegation. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, but try and find out in the next, 10, 15 minutes how we can solve indeed that problem. Could one of the areas maybe that they haven't replaced be one N'Golo Kanté? Last season, everyone was fawning over him. Perhaps he turned down a move to Arsenal and then eventually ended up at Chelsea. So, has the one in the middle got any idea where things perhaps have slipped for his former side?
Jim prepare more because we know Leicester was champions last season, and I think this is why it's difficult. They have more games and it's different this season. Yeah, last season was beautiful. What we achieved is amazing, but for me, last season is finished. I enjoyed last season with Leicester, but this season we are focused game after game, and I can say I want to reach the target with the team and try to win the title if we can. But it's not especially for me, for the team. Yeah.
Hashtag PL Football Today. It's one of those questions that you look at Leicester City and it's perhaps something obvious to say that Kanté is the reason in the company of Matt Elliott and Emile Heskey. I'm not saying you two are obvious, but Kanté, he's gone. Leicester City free fall. Equation met?
Large part of it, in my view, it's a little bit lame or easy to say that, I suppose. You know, it doesn't mean lame in terms of Leicester supporters are getting tired of hearing that. But it's a valid reason. He was integral to how they played last year. He almost did the work of 2 people. As it's been mentioned, he had Kanté on the left, Drinkwater in the middle, Kanté on the right. That one keeps coming out, and apparently the most interceptions and tackles of any player in the Premier League over the last 3 years. Only been here for a year and a half. You know, all these little quotes and stats are coming out. And he's some player. He's some player. In that role of his type, I haven't seen any better in recent years. And I think he can still improve as well. Kanté is his manager at Chelsea now. So, you know, if he can improve his forward play and his passing range, and then you have got a player. But sorely missed by Leicester City, yeah, particularly by the back 4 unit.
More submissions for the defence, my lord. Perhaps his tackles then over the last 3 seasons, Emile. I mean, look at that work rate that he gives. Look at that protection that he gives you, and he's only been there for 2 of those seasons.
Exactly. The intensity that he does all his work at as well is just phenomenal. I've been watching him for a few years now, and he must be a nightmare especially for forwards trying to get a hold of the ball. You think that he's not there, and the next minute he's taking the ball off you, and then setting them on the break as well. And and you've seen it with the defence. They haven't got that buffer in there now, and they find it very difficult.
He's a dream. He'd had 2 years to your career as a centre half. Easy, you don't even have to scream at him because he just does it naturally. Protects those centre halves, and that's why Morgan and Huth, good players. him going as maybe.
Well, why haven't they replaced him then?
It's difficult to find someone. They've got NDD in now, who looks, as a young lad, I think he's only 19, 20. He looks quite athletic, but his positional sense, I don't think, is as good as Kanté's. But he looks like he could be the guy that could actually replace him.
He reads it, Emile, doesn't he? We were just saying off camera that Kanté, he's there. He's halfway there before the ball's even been played. He looks in, you get fullbacks looking to play it down the line. They're giving you the eyes, knowing but if you're clever enough, you look 3 seconds before that, you know that and he's on top of people before they've got a chance to get their head up.
Exactly.
There's an argument that they haven't had the money to spend, but that's an argument, again, that the stats don't play out. 8th best during the summer transfer window in terms of the amount that they spent. So the money was there to bring replacement in.
Well, at the end of the day, the owners have always said they would back the manager in the market. I think Matty, you mentioned before, the players that they've actually brought in haven't really done it.
Well, 11 there for Slimani in terms of starts. So is it that they haven't done it, or they're not being tried and tested?
The Premier League is a league that, if you don't hit the ground running, it can find you out very quickly. So some of these, like Musa as well, came in with great expectations, but hasn't really done it. The last one is Ndidi. I think he's been exciting, but the others have not really captured your imagination.
Yeah, indeed, it's the pick of the bunch out of those. But as you say, a lot of money has been spent there, and I think what Leicester tried to do was not go and look for these big name players, because I think they feared that they might upset the apple cart a little bit. So they tried to buy players of a certain character. I know that was publicly their intent, but you also need to get the right calibre of player as well, someone who's can acquit themselves in these leagues. You can't keep churning out, golden nuggets like Kanté, Mahrez to come from abroad and perform straight away. And they've been well short the recruited players from the summer. Sorry,
so who's
Slimani in particular? I mean, I know he's had the most starts, but he's got the biggest transfer fee. They feel obligated to play him, but he's struggled.
Whose fault is it then, if we're going to play the blame game? Is it Steve Walsh, who's now gone off to Everton? Again, he's another one. If you're saying Kanté's going, Walsh going, many have laid the blame at his feet. And the fact they've not had someone adequate enough to say, right, we need that player. He's the type of player we need in.
Well, it's an accumulation of things, isn't it? A lot of things are on the slide or have gone wrong for Leicester. They're, different areas, recruitment. The list is pretty much endless, really. But I think with Walsh going, I think it was a blow, but it shouldn't be a massive body blow. It shouldn't be fatal in any way. Masia has come in, who I'm sure is experienced in the recruitment side. And even recruiting players is a collective decision. And, it's been mentioned that a lot of the players that Walsh was part of have excelled. He's also brought in a few players who have struggled. And he also would have earmarked a lot of players that have probably come into the club after he's left. So it's not 100% success rate for anyone in that position, I don't think. And it's a collective thing, recruitment. The manager be involved, director of recruitment, and football, and the chairman. Scouts. Everything comes together. Scouts, yeah. But you've got that network there.
Yeah, you've got a network of scouts. I'm sure not all of them have left either.
Well, the ones that have gone have left behind a defence that you've already argued has lost a couple of years off their seasons as it is. They were one of the best in the Premier League last time out. This time round, the back four, well, they're one of the worst.
I think we just want to, remain focused. Last season, there's so much positiveness and so much to look forward to, with obviously the form we was in, and obviously this season's there's a lot of difference. So, we're just remaining focused on the work that needs to be done and making sure we don't get sidetracked by anything.
We stick together as a team, that's what we need to do right now. It's not as easy as last season. Everybody expected much more from us, but, it's also not easy. Everybody, all the other teams, they adapted to our way of playing, and, what we're doing right now is keep calm, try to give our best in every game, and I believe that with our quality that we have in our squad, we'll come back to winning ways.
I've always said last year, it's when we're doing well defensively, it's always been a team effort. Starts at the front and so on. It works its way through the team. And this year we quite simply haven't done that at all. We sort of from the front we haven't defended as well as we can or should. But ultimately it comes down to the defence that will get criticised if you concede, as well as to get the positive effect if you keep a clean sheet. So something that we always try to work on in training and the mentality, but at the moment, it's not going fast.
You should have heard the giggling when Huth says it's all about the forwards from a couple of the forwards in the studio. Let's take a look at the defence then. Huth, Fuchs, and Morgan. Look at their ages. We've got 30, 30, 33 and 32. They've got the experience there too, but such a huge difference, Matt, from last time out to this season.
Yeah, I mean, most people, when they look at a solid defence, they want players of a certain age. I don't think that's an issue, their age. I think Morgan's been perhaps toiling a little bit of late because of his workload. He's played constantly for 2 years, both summers. He played all the way through in various competitions, internationally as well.
Emil's not buying that.
Well, no, I think it can take his toll a little bit. He'll probably get rested tonight. But generally, they're not ancient. You get better as a centre-half the older you get, certainly around the 30-year-old mark. So I don't really go along
These are the
with that
basics,
one.
aren't they? Emil, they should be doing these right.
I wouldn't say you get better. I'd just say you get wiser, and you know your positioning.
Yeah, exactly,
your positioning wise, you get yeah.
That's not showing there though.
No, that isn't showing there, and I think like we spoke before with Kanté being in front, they've been able to get away with a lot before that.
Well, yeah, you mentioned that Kanté. He was massive in that department, making those two look even better than they are, because they're as good as anyone defending their own penalty box when they've got bodies around them. Even the fullbacks weren't bothered about closing down crosses last season. Tight, 2 banks of 4 in their own penalty area, near enough. Now, a lot of people can defend that. Now, this season, they're going forward a little bit more. They're getting a little bit more exposed. And you're seeing the results. But, I mean, that one you highlighted there, yeah, they're disjointed. They're not working as a pair. Shows, I don't know, confidence and their focus is not what it should be.
But even with crosses as well, though, Matty, sometimes crosses coming in and positional wise, they're not quite there.
No, this
yard
season.
off, a yard off the forward.
Yeah,
things coming in, going own goals coming in off them and stuff like that. So
they're doing things you wouldn't expect. Two experienced, accomplished defenders.
But
I don't know. How do you explain that?
You wouldn't expect it from them. The manager should have got hold of them by this stage, shouldn't he? And should have sorted that out.
Well, usually, when you say sorting that out, usually managers would just drop you and play someone else. But have they got anyone else to actually play?
No. Well, they've tried to bring Wagai in on loan. He's not fit enough to feature and to play in the under-23s. That's not ideal. They've got a couple of other options that he doesn't think are viable. Benalawan and Vasilevsky. So,
and is the problem now? I mean, there was talk that they were trying to get hold of Michael Keane from Burnley when their stock was high, as it were. So at that stage, you've just won the Premier League. You're in the summer. Then that's the stage that players will want to come to you. But if you're not doing your business then, and you're trying to do it now in January when you're fighting relegation, with the best will in the world as a player, you're going to want to walk into that situation.
Well, the thing is, I think obviously, like you're saying, they should have been recruiting back just after they'd won the Premier League. I think it would have been easier then. And then once you actually get to the point where you're struggling, I think you're having to pay over the odds to actually get people to come into the team.
Yeah, it's the difficulty that he's got to try and solve. If he can't solve it now with those players that he's got, and when I say if he can't solve it now, you've got the likes of Fuchs, who's captain for his country. You have that experience across the back four. Are they seemingly, from what you've seen, Matt, are they not playing for him? And if they're not, can he turn it round?
I think as a footballer, you don't necessarily play for the manager. First and foremost, you play for yourself. And then you play.
Are they playing for themselves? Do you see pride in them to go down?
I don't think they've been on their game enough. No, I think they've relaxed a bit. They've taken their foot off the gas, possibly subconsciously. And off the back of last year, how successful they were. Part of it, I think, is going back to that mentality where part of you thinks, well, I'm a champion. I don't need to probably work as hard as I did last year because it's there. It's been proven I'm a good player. They're not necessarily being arrogant. You can have that just within you, lose the edge off your game. I think there's a bit of that. But you play for yourself as an individual. Then hopefully you play for your teammate. And you do your best for him and vice versa, because if he's doing well, he's making you look a better player. Then you start talking about. I'm not quite sure it's playing for that. Unless there's a massive disconnect between the players and the manager, any player should be given his utmost. It's only if there's enormous disharmony that you want the manager out of the situation. I don't think that's the case at Leicester.
Well, we know the problem, of course. It's you strikers, isn't it? We've heard he said it there. The case then for the defence made through the attack, which perhaps has possibly been misfiring this season. Not just Jamie Vardy, but step forward one, Riyad Mahrez.
Well, it's difficult for me a little bit, but that's football. Now everyone is waiting for me, and when there is things like that, just kind of improve your football and progress. So I just need to keep going, and I know the thing's gonna come back. Well, everything is possible. We won the league last season, so we need to do everything to not be in this position anymore, and we need to win games. Premier League is not an easy league, and everyone waits for us now. Everyone is scared because we are the champion, so we just have to refocus, yeah.
How can you go from being, I don't know why I'm asking you two, how can you go from being player of the year one season to how poor he has been this season? And I say poor because it's not just his goals, but it's his assists too. 11 last season, 2 this time out, chances created as well, just dropping off dribbles, attempts, success rate, crossing accuracy. He's going to love those stats. But it does seem, Emil, such a drop-off.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for him because he was so good last season, and it's about getting that consistency. That's why you see you got your Ronaldos, your Messis and all that, because year after year after year after year they do the same stats. The stats they make sure they're up there with the best of them, and this is what we've been accustomed to with him. And if he drops that standard, everyone's like, no, he's not good enough anymore. And mentally, I don't know if he's actually still there right now. And we at the end of the day, Leicester need him to pick up. Leicester need him to start scoring these goals like this. They need him to start getting the dribbles in. They need him to start setting goals up for others.
He's actually starting to get criticised a little bit by the Leicester faithful, which you find amazing, don't you, after what he did last year. I mean, we're seeing all the clips here. Unbelievable, one after another. Moments of sublime skill, really, and ability that not many other players can repeat and can get to that sort of level. But he looks relaxed, and I said to Emil there while the clip was on, I'm not sure how bothered he is, but in fairness to him,
you see that in his body
he was like
language?
that last year. He's got that languid, lazy
I
stuff.
think that's just his demeanour anyway.
He nearly fell asleep in his own interview there, didn't he? Which is, he's even boring himself a bit. But he was, he's just that laid-back, relaxed nature, and that can be interpreted as not caring. I think that's wrong. But what I think he is doing, he's not changing his game enough. He's capable of the ridiculously good, but not every time. And every time, certainly earlier in the season, he's getting the ball, he's being doubled, trebled up on, and he's still trying to beat 2s, 3s and 4s. That only happens every now and then. Pop the ball off, someone else can do a bit, and then you might divert a bit of the attention. But like a lot of the players at Leicester, the edge has gone off his game.
How much has he sat there thinking as well, I've seen my mate Kanté go off to Chelsea and what's happening there, I could have had a move and it's not happened.
Well, you can't be thinking like that. I was lucky enough to play with Matty in a team that, there was a lot of onus on me as well as a young lad coming through, and the way that I played as well. But I was lucky enough to have your Stevie Clouders who'd get 10 to 12 goals, 15 goals. Your Tony Cott's who'll get 10 to 12, 15 goals. He hasn't really got that. Another player who's going to chip in and help in. So everyone's looking at him. So there's a lot of pressure on him.
I wonder if that pressure has kind of been felt by Jamie Vardy too. When we look at great strikers, and you're looking at the quality that they're going to bring in the second season, for example. Remember Harry Kane, could he do it in that tricky second season? He went and showed he could for Spurs as well. Jamie Vardy is kind of facing that moment too. 3 in 24. Is he proving, or is the Premier League proving to be too much for him?
Yeah, I feel for Jamie Vardy to a level. I think Harry Kane, you mentioned there, to me it was quite obvious he's a complete striker. He's got so many dimensions to his game. I think Vardy is not as one-dimensional as everyone likes to consider him. He scored different goals of different sorts. He hits them in the box, the odd header, the odd one from distance, but primarily it is a certain sort of goal. The ball over the top, and he's running at defenders, outstripping them, or maybe to the side and finishing. But yes, his goals have dried up, but so have his opportunities. He's not being given much service at all. I mean, there was an amazing stat, not up until a few weeks ago, that it was like one time in 9 games Riyad Mahrez had passed to Jamie Vardy. Wow. Never mind set him up for a chance, passed. What is that all about? How does that happen off the back of last year? They were setting each other up, left, right and centre, weren't they? And, so that happens for a reason. That happens because Mahrez is not getting free enough. He's not getting the right sort of ball, and it's a chain of events, really. But having said that, Vardy can look at different reasons why he's not firing, but just his general play, he's losing his edge as well.
That point that he's not a complete striker, why were Arsenal then after him?
Obviously, with the season that you have, breaking records that he did, everyone's going to be looking at you. There's going to be, I'm guessing there wasn't just Arsenal at the time looking at him. They were probably the ones that were actually saying, we want him. But I'm guessing there have been a lot of teams looking at him because of the goals he was scoring.
He'd give him another option as well, wouldn't he? But they haven't got a player of that ilk, really. Sanchez, weaves in and out, uses his skill and technical ability. Another string to their bow as well. But he's had an amazing time, hasn't he, Jamie Vardy? And people are levelling him, he's in magazines and he's concentrating on the films. And I don't really go along with that one, really. It can take the edge off you, maybe, subconsciously. But
did it ruin you too?
Well, magazines. Actually, we never had those film style stories. The Terminator or something.
I'll say there's still time. Don't worry, that will happen. The hard man is going to come next, the villain. But for Jamie Vardy, though, and I said about the Arsenal move, and if we're looking at how this season is affecting Leicester City as a club, how will it have affected the prospects for Jamie Vardy?
Well, Jamie Vardy's got a long contract at Leicester, so he's pretty secure there. His international career might falter in that aspect if you're not playing, if you're not scoring on that aspect. But I still think he gives different options especially to international football. He gives you a different option to the similar players that you do have in international football. I'm guessing that Harry Kane would be the main man up front, but when you have different options, it's always good to have that.
Yeah, because look away now, Leicester fans, but should you get relegated, players like Jamie Vardy, are they going to stick around? You say about these long contracts, but Leicester have to be looking now that, is this their one shot to stay up? If they go down, could they come back?
Yeah, I think they could. I mean, the last time, it was a bit of a yo-yo situation just prior to the last relegation, if that makes sense. But then they spent 10 years or so in the wilderness, was it? Even longer, maybe. But eventually, I think Leicester would be able to get themselves back in the Premier League.
What did that do to the club?
Well, initially, it sent it into administration.
Yeah.
It was catastrophic, almost. Thankfully, we got Emil had left by then. He jumped ship by then. But,
well, that's what I mean.
Well, he was part of the reason for the downfall, to be honest. Him going to Liverpool set things in motion. He left, Martin O'Neill left, and anyway, lots of things occurred then. But eventually, Leicester got themselves back in. And, but if it was to happen again now, you do worry because of the amount of finances, the contracts that are involved there. I mean, those players, a lot of them, how many people, Jamie Vardy at his age, if they went down, all of a sudden he's valued at 25 last year. What are you getting for him now? They're going to sell him, you're probably only, 10 maybe. You probably get 10.
Would they need to sell him, especially in that first, say, 2 years? Would they actually need to send? Could they still run the club the way that they do now, with a view of getting straight back up?
But the owners could afford to do that. I mean, they're not just millionaires, they're the next level. And so they can afford to do that if they decide to go that way. But listen, hopefully we're talking about a non-relevant situation.
I'm going to say you were the saviour of Leicester City, Emil, because that chain of events has led them to here, hasn't it?
Well, yeah.
Possibly. There'll be a statue of you somewhere.
The 11 million he went for got totally wasted on not very good players. Mind you, did try and come and help save the club, didn't you? In administration, he was there, he was involved, so we like him again now.
We'll shine your halo for a little bit longer. Emil and Matty are staying with us as we talk all things Leicester City. So, what's the task that faces them? We'll take a look in the next part at who they're up against in that fight for survival.
Sigurdsson is waiting. He's behind Sigurdsson, but he's still got there, and he's still provided a wonderful finish. Incredible! Oh, Defoe could be in again here, and he's turned and scored! Oh my goodness, can you believe it? Here's Nias, wonderful ball over the top. Nias, 2-0. It's an afternoon with massive ramifications in the bottom four.
Hashtag PL Football Today to be part of our chat for the next 15 minutes or so. It's a tough last 15 minutes for our guests in the studio, Matty Elliott and Emil Heskey. I've given them the half-time oranges. We're pushing on towards the end while they have another breather. Let's hear from the two men who we heard from right at the start of the show, talking about all things Leicester, Peter Schmeichel and Alan Shearer. They've got strong words on who Leicester will be up against in that battle to stave off relegation.
When I look at Sunderland, when I look at Swansea, when I look at Hull, I see teams and squads that are prepared to roll their sleeves up, do the dirty work first and give it a right good go. When I look at Crystal Palace, as soon as they concede a first goal, I can see heads go down. And I don't see any of that rolling the sleeves up in the Leicester team at this moment in time. So I really worry for Crystal Palace, and I worry for Leicester City, because when you see the defeats that have happened today and with Crystal Palace yesterday when Sunderland, the way they beat them, the manner they beat them, the lack of effort, if you like, that is a worrying time any stage of the season, let alone when you're into the final count.
I concur. I agree with that. Momentum is everything in football. When you're in the scrap, if you win a game, that's momentum, and you know you can win. Leicester go on the pitch now. They don't think they can win. Middlesbrough struggling a little bit. Crystal Palace, but the bottom three team are flying up there.
I wonder if Matty and Emil concur with the great Peter Schmeichel. Here's a look then at that bottom six at the moment. Leicester City, for all there we're not in a relegation battle, are right in it. 21 points, level on points with Middlesbrough and Swansea, who they go to at the week. Then Hull just a point back, Crystal Palace a further 2 back, and Sunderland equally a further 2 back at the bottom of the table. Now, this might be something that if you're a Newcastle fan, you might not want to look at. This was back in 2009 when it was just as tight as now. The only other time it's been as tight as now. Newcastle, Portsmouth and Stoke all on 24 points. And then equally, Blackburn just a point back, Middlesbrough and West Brom just a further 2 points back on that one. There's the pressure of looking at the table. I don't know as players whether you do take a look at that table. I mean, it'd be ridiculous not to.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I've been in them sort of battles, and you're always looking at it, and you slowly get dragged into this relegation fight, and it's obviously, like they said, momentum. When you see teams actually winning below you, and you can't find the win somewhere, it gets worrying. And I've had it with Birmingham at the time, and we were fine. We were flying, and then started to lose 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, and suddenly you're getting dragged, pulled into it, and they keep getting their momentum up. So it doesn't look good.
Table pressure, and yet I don't want to give you any credit, Mr. Elliott, but you spoke a wee while earlier about the fact that they've been there, they've done that before, and they've survived just 2 seasons ago. Yeah,
well, hopefully that will stand them in good stead, because as Emil says there, you just slip into this rut almost, and it engulfs you before you realise actually what's happening sometimes. And then when the realisation that you're in that predicament, you start changing your style of play, because you start playing too safely because you don't want to make mistakes, and you're not such a threat when you go forward collectively as a team. And the teams that hold their nerve best, tend to get themselves out of that hole, or the teams that have that bit of star quality within their ranks that can perhaps produce a moment of magic that will turn things around for them. Leicester do have that in Mahrez, although we haven't seen enough of it. Vardy to a level. But I think they do have that experience from going through similar situations a couple of years ago. what they did for me was it push came to shove. They were being cautious for most of that season, losing games by the odd goal, not playing too bad, but losing regularly. All of a sudden, I think it was 9 games to go, changed it round. Nigel Pearson went, listen, we've got no choice, we've got to go for this. They went for it and they got it. And I think that did them a world of good. It made them realise as players, we can compete at this level, we can get results at this level. And that followed on the next season. They got to remind themselves of what they are capable of.
You're nodding, Emil.
Yeah, definitely. Once you start getting that momentum and you start getting that belief in these players, they're not bad players. You don't suddenly turn bad players. You just need to get a bit of that belief back. And like you're seeing with a lot of these players are still at the club, so they know the feeling of going 10 games unbeaten and beating that dreaded drop. So they know the feeling of it. So they should be able to push again.
But that's under Nigel Pearson. Is Ranieri that kind of manager?
You say Ranieri is the players. The players have got to stand up for themselves as well. That's what we did.
But they haven't done it to this point, have they? So
but they know. But it is the similar sort of players who have played in who got themselves out of that hole. Yes, it was Nigel Pearson, but the players that went on the pitch and did it as well.
You ask any manager, or most managers, some are a bit deluded, think they're more influential than they in reality are. But I think most managers who are honest say, listen, good or bad, it's predominantly down to the players. Coaches and managers help along the situation. Of course they do, in a number of ways. But the biggest factor is whether the players are performing or not. These players know they can. They know they can do it because they've done it before. So that is the main crumb of comfort for me, because as Peter Schmeichel and Alan Shearer said, they're quite right in saying it, in my opinion, that Leicester and Crystal Palace, you've got to fear for them because they're on the slide. The others are resurgent to a level, and they've got positivity going on. Having said that, I think Leicester will just about get themselves out of it.
I love a positive man. Let me try and put some more doom and gloom on it and look at those fixtures then and what they've got to get. Claudio Ranieri famously last season said they needed 40 points to survive. They're 19 points off that at the moment. Swansea, the old 6-pointer this weekend. Liverpool, Hull, who are turning things around. Arsenal, West Ham, who have to come into a bit of a form, you feel, if Bilic is to continue there. Stoke, Sunderland, Everton, Palace and Spurs. Easy, arms above the head, Emil.
Look, I think with the away form, that's not looking too great anyway. So you're looking at the home form really to really drag you out of the quagmire there, and you need at least five wins from there, possibly 6. And it's a tall order, but with the backing of the fans and the players understanding that they've done it before, so why not? Can't they do it again? I believe they could.
They've decided to put out this statement, the club, and say they're supporting Claudio Ranieri. There was talk that he could go. We've seen clubs around them, namely Swansea coming up this weekend, Paul Clement being brought into the club. We've seen them blink. We've seen them change the manager at the top, and they seem to have got momentum out of that. Yeah,
but as is usually the case, there's an argument for and against, because you only have to look to Leicester's own situation 2 years ago. I think Nigel Pearson actually unofficially got sacked at one stage, didn't he? And strangely, I don't know if he was reinstated, because I'm not sure if he ever got the sack in the first place, but there were more than strong rumours that he'd departed. The club decided to stick with him, got the results. So people say, well, that's the effects of stability and perseverance, sticking with someone, eventually they'll come good. Other people of the trainer thought, well, okay, this has gone as far as it's going to go, bring in some fresh blood, bit of impetus, and it works that way. So each case is different. I think in Leicester's situation, if we're talking about them, I think the right thing to do is keep Ranieri at the helm, because if you don't, I think it's just going to add to the chaos, whoever came in.
And yet Clement's come in and he steadied things at Swansea.
Yeah, I think it's down to, obviously, like Matty said before, it's the players. It's down to the players if they actually feed into the philosophy of the manager and understand what the manager wants. In general, they will pick themselves up and dust themselves down and go again and start putting in performances. And that's what you've seen at Swansea, because you had Bob Bradley come in and it never quite worked out for him. And then another manager comes in, same players, but it seems to be working. It seems to be clicking.
The flag that was kind of raised when Bob Bradley came in and everyone went, whoa, what's this appointment? Kind of happened as well with Hull, with Marco Silva coming in. There was that same sort of reaction, maybe on the papers alone, maybe not with the fans. Maybe not to the same degree. But it's very much, is he the right man to come in and help us? And for the moment, he appears to be doing well at Hull too.
Yeah, and then they lose 3 games and they'll say, oh, he's got these shortcomings and he was never going to be able to sustain that. But
I love how positive you are.
Well, no, but that's how it goes, isn't it? You're either the best manager in the world or you're a non-league Sunday morning gaffer, aren't you? And it frustrates me. But you've got to sort of look at it in a balanced way. But at a risk of repeating ourselves, the players are the ones who go out there and perform. A lot of managers, in my view, are much of a muchness. You do get exceptional ones, don't get me wrong. But Silva, yeah, I like the way he carries himself, the way he speaks. He looks like the players would like him. You think he's one of those. And you're like, yeah, this bloke, he's got a bit about him. I think we'll buy into that a little bit. So I think he's... But you can only do so much with the players he's got. I expect Hull to go down. They've had a good little trot. They've done well. But their resources are very limited.
I feel like you've just patted them on the head and sent them off to school.
Yeah, well done. You're all right in your mocks. The GCSEs are coming. No chance.
And other such exams. The examination then that Hull and Swansea, he reckons Hull are going down. Do you think, Emil, that Hull and Swansea are in a better position now than they were before those managerial changes?
Probably, yes. Momentum will, and even the way they're playing show that they are. They've gathered a bit of momentum, and their confidence is gone up a little bit. But like you're saying, you have 1 or 2 bad results, and then you're back to square one again, and people are questioning you.
Yeah, you look like saying Hull. They had a good little run of results, but if you extend that between now to the end of the season, we've got 14 games. So if you include that 4, they won 3 out of 4. Now, they're not going to carry on at that level, are they? They're going to have another dip or
you would have thought
fall off the edge, maybe. They're capable of that. They're not going to carry on winning 3 out of 4 for the rest of the season.
You do realise this is being recorded as well as going out live, so this can come back.
I'm confident in that. Hull will not win 3 out of 4 every sequence, but... well, listen, if it happens, doesn't it? But I think Leicester are going to get their way out.
Rowing back there. You hear that? Just maybe backtracking. Yeah. While you do that then, someone that's been left to get on with it, but said they would be in a relegation battle is David Moyes at Sunderland. But they are one of the form teams when you look at those down the bottom.
I think that you look at his team and they're just battlers. I think Alan Shearer was saying, they're going to go out there and they're going to give 110%. Plus, they've got a proven goal scorer in Jermaine Defoe, who is outstanding, and he knows where the net is. Defensively, they haven't been great, but when you know that you've got someone who's going to definitely 100% score you goals, you get a bit of confidence there.
And that's so important that they clung on to him as they did in January.
Yeah, and there were rumours actually about Leicester being interested in when he first came back from across the water, and I was advocating go for him. What a squad member he would be to have, and he's proved his worth, hasn't he? I mean, David Moyes, even from early on in the season, he looked downcast, didn't he? As if he knew it was going to be a long, hard season. He almost said it. Yeah, almost a look of resignation about himself, really, about the way things were going. But yeah, they've picked up. But again, they're not going to carry on that way. I think they're going to be down there as well.
Speaking of that look of relegation about him, Sam Allardyce at Crystal Palace, that result for Sunderland over them as well. You look at him and think, there's someone that has that managerial bounce. He walks into clubs, he keeps them up. That's what he does. Not working out at the moment.
No, I think he's come out and said that he's just trying to get that confidence back in them players, and because they have got, you see the players that they got ability. I've watched Palace play sometimes. You're like, this is a good side, but once you've got to start getting in that rut, and he's obviously trying to get that rallying cry for his players and saying, look, you're good players, come on, let's show the fans what you're capable of doing. And that result was just bad for them.
The other team also in it, dragged into it, Middlesbrough. They haven't really been out of it this season. How do you rate their chances?
Yeah, it's a strange one, Middlesbrough. They've been very conservative in their play. I think the amount of goals scored is lowest in the league, I think I'm right in saying. But I can understand that approach from Karanka. He's trying to be steady first and foremost, and then perhaps build as the season goes on. But they need to do that and improve their attacking play, be more adventurous in the final third of the season. Otherwise, they're going to get, well, not dragged in it. They're in and around the fringes already, aren't they? But Palace are the ones that surprised me. But Sam Allardyce mentioned the other day, and it wasn't very resounding in terms of his backing of the situation, saying that there's a fear around here. You know, the players are playing with fear. They're fearful of the consequences, and that strikes a chord in you as a player, and it sends a little shiver down your spine, and not in a positive way, I don't think.
Well, I mean, you've been nothing if not positive this whole show, Matt. But for both of you now, coming back to Leicester, you've kind of made the cases for all the others dropping out. It sounds like, Emil, he's saying Leicester are safe.
I'd like to think they're safe, but they still got to go out there and perform. And just saying that, oh yeah, we're safe, and not putting in the performances is wrong. Like I said, there's five, maybe four wins that is needed, possibly five, and away form is not showing that they're capable of getting any away wins there. So home has got to be, we've got to be at it at home.
So we're not going to get the Hollywood ending then, which I reckon will probably be relegation.
Yeah.
Unless they're saved on the last day of the season, that would be the Hollywood.
Yeah, I think it could be that, couldn't it? And Jamie Vardy not to score between now and then, and then a hat-trick on the final. Yeah, last minute, off his head, off the crossbar. Is it over the line or not? Goal line technology declares it is. Yes, Leicester up by 1 goal. There you go.
See, I'm not entirely sure now who's going down, who's staying up, or what part you two will play.
Sunderland Palace going down.
Really?
For me.
I'll go with
He agrees. Yeah. Well, the fairy tale for the moment then continues for Leicester. I feel like I've been through therapy. I hope it's helped you out some way. Not sure if we've solved it, but for the moment, the Foxes keep flying. Goodbye.